Oh, and we are live on the Icecast Live. And my name is Shane Chebsey, and next to me is Ollie the Barbarian. You are the most lithe, skinny, wiry barbarian I've ever seen, mate, to be fair.
Barbarian of the mind. The barbarian of interviews.
Well, I'll go with that, yeah.
The barbarian of the bar.
Yeah, the barbarian of the bar. I like that. Yeah, that definitely fits, mate. So it's quite a topical nickname you've given yourself tonight.
I try to be topical, yes.
Yeah, I like that. And are you well, mate? You all right?
I'm very good. I like to be running on adrenaline 24 hours a day. You know, I look forward to these chats. There's always someone nice to chat to. Our guest tonight, I've never chatted to before, but I've as we all do, I've admired his work from afar. So again, it's another one of those sort of tick the boxes off the list of people I would like to interview.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad to help with that, mate.
And how are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm just a bit tired. I was, as I said earlier offline, I was streaming last night. I did a stream for 3 hours on an American show. And of course, it was like, mid-evening for those guys. But for me, it was early hours of the morning. So it was 3-hour stream as well. So by the end, I was genuinely knackered.
Imagine. And was that about the Dracula book coming out? Was that about Scar Comics in general? No,
not really. No, I mean, obviously, I mentioned Scratch Comics and I mentioned Hedrick, and why not? There we are. I've had the proofs.
There we go. Lovely. Nice little plug. I always try and help you out. I always try and help you out with a little bit of the plug.
So yeah, I did mention it, but the focus of it was like a mastermind group, and the publishers. There was like publishers, creators, artists, writers, all talking about
kind of a round table.
Yeah, like a round table, helping each other solve problems in our publishing lives.
Nice one.
And it was really good. It was a lot more sensible than what we do on here. I have to say, I had to.
That's not hard.
I had to sort of rein myself in. I think my guest tonight, our guest, should I say, tonight.
Thank you. It's bad enough I'm looking at that all the time.
I'll have to get one of you, Ollie. Get a little icon of you in the corner. Well, there it is, up there. Yeah. So I think our guest has been on one of the Tyler's shows, actually. There, Sam's took it off now. Thanks, Sam.
Well done.
No, not comic book Sam. Get rid of that. Right. Oh, thank you. Bloody hell. People have been fired for less. So our guest tonight, and I hope I pronounce it right, is Nick Pitarra. Now, it could be wrong. It could be Nick Pitarra, or it could be Nick Pitarra.
Or we could ask him ourselves.
We could ask him.
We could.
So I think what we should do is bring him on and play the intro, Sam, and see if I pronounced it right or wrong.
Let's have it.
And good evening and welcome back to the Icecast, and welcome to the Icecast, Nick. How you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for having me, man. And as far as my last name goes, it is Pitarra, but for my whole career, people call me Pitarra, and I don't correct them. So I guess it's
you should do. I only get one surname. You should be proud of it. My name McNamee is a bit of a mouthful. I'm quite happy to correct people politely. Yeah. But, don't get it wrong twice.
I think it's nice to get people's names right. It's like a politeness, isn't it? And I guessed it might be Pitarra because I know that you guys over in the States, like, it's one of these things that I've always noticed, that the name Tara over here is always pronounced Terra over there. Yeah. So I thought, maybe it works the same on this name. So there you go. So welcome.
Another bizarre pronunciation, graham crackers. I forever didn't realise Graham. It's like they call Graham crackers, graham crackers. That was always a weird one for me.
Yeah. So you guys call it graham crackers?
Or it's crackers? The name Graham, isn't it? So
Graham. Yeah.
I thought it was like the weight of the cracker or something. That's why they were called graham crackers.
Yeah.
When I saw it written down, I thought, no, that's the name Graham.
I didn't know it was pronounced Graham. Is it pronounced Graham? Is it?
These particular crackers are, yes.
Oh, right.
But let's not waste too long talking about
this is an important cultural, issue. This is a very important cultural issue, mate. We are ambassadors across the pond here. We need to get these things right.
We spell colour right, and Nick spells colour wrong.
And we'll end it at that. Let's not alienate the guest.
No, not in the first 5 minutes, anyway.
So, Nick, a warm welcome to the Icecast, my friend. So we're here primarily tonight, obviously, to talk about Ax-Wielder Jon, aren't we? Which is your book.
Or Ax-Wielder Jon, because an axe welder would be someone who welds for a living. Come on, Shane, pull it together. It's lucky I'm here.
Yes, indeed. And we've had a little sneak look at the book, and it's fantastic. It looks amazing. And I first encountered your work on the Red Wing.
Oh yeah, that's an early one.
Hickman. Yeah, I was a big fan. I mean, I love the minimalist covers and all that. That drew me to it. And I instantly, this is great stuff. Really liked your style. And also Manhattan Projects, obviously. But this seems to be one hell of a development in your style and your approach to storytelling and your stylization. It seems like you're sort of getting into a groove that's very much your own. It really is like true to who you are as an artist. Would that be a right assumption there, Nick?
Yeah. There was definitely an evolution with those 3 books. I think my first work with Hickman was in a Marvel Presents story with Mojo, and there was early on in my career, there was this artist named Seth Fisher, and he was more mechanical, and I kind of like used him as like a guiding light, and because I could figure out perspective and new perspective well, but I wasn't very organic yet. And then on the Red Wing, I kind of got a little more sterile on it. Hickman wanted me to refine my stuff a little bit more, so I did. Then on Manhattan Projects, I was like, I'm going to draw everyone more grotesque and bulbous, much more like I would want to draw, And something about the Red Wing characters, they were like, if you silhouetted them out, they'd all be the same. But on the Manhattan Project stuff, I realized that I needed to black out the characters, and then they all read as silhouettes. And then with Ax-Wielder Jon, I really wanted to develop a little bit more of a commercial style. And I've been obsessed with volume more, like bigger characters. If someone's masculine, they're super masculine. They're not 8 heads high, they're 8 heads wide, like just over the top. And but also refining my inking. And a big trick to that was every panel in the book, I'm drawing on its own 11 by 17 board. And then I'm using the smallest pens to ink. So each panel is actually drawn like this and then shrunk down to a comic this size.
Whoa.
So the art condenses down nicely, and it's a little bit of a trick to like, so people are like, oh, your lines are more elegant or whatever. They're probably about the same. I just did a little magic trick, So yeah, I'm always trying to push myself. And then with Ax-Wielder, I'm just trying to go, as crazy as I can, over the top. If something's bombastic, then if he's going to fight 3 guys, then behind those 3 guys, 100 more guys are coming, and just really over the top. And there was a part of me that knew I was going to crowdfund this since the 1.5 years I've been working on it. And I've been showing the work off online, and I knew I needed to be a little more commercial with the art. It needed to look cool versus my other work looked a little bit silly or idiosyncratic. And this is that too, but this is a little more, it looks a little cooler, and to get the average reader that's going to come across a crowdfunding campaign, I think you need to have a little more commercial style. So
it needs to stand out from the crowd, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It certainly does that, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, just the character alone, his appearance,
what an ugly fucker.
It's like, where did that inspiration come from to create a character that was so sort of difficult to look at in some ways?
Yeah, so I really wanted the writing to stand out, and I thought if I could draw this guy completely hideous, could I still get the emotional beats through? Could I shine him in a different light? From what the people see him as, like a monster, versus what he is as a person, and a very generic. Yeah, so that's the cover by Das Pastoras, And
Awesome.
as soon as we got it in, I called my editor and I was like, dude, if we gave ourselves a big challenge here because we have a bloody stubbed toe for our cover. You know what I mean? Like if we could sell this, we could sell anything. And so the idea there was, he's going to be this overly machismo, overly masculine character, but something's going to happen in the story that takes him down a notch. So it was almost a sight gag to me to take the symbol of masculinity and break it in half. And then once I broke it in half, it was kind of like a reverse Hitler, kind of, it was like the inverted. And so what then I said, I'm just going to take that scar and cut it all the way up his face, and I kind of took his sinus cavity off because I didn't want people looking into his booger holes, So I just kind of turned it into a hamburger meat under it. So the story is that there's this faceless barbarian who's cursed to fall in love with the heads of his many victims. And he's kind of lost his mind wandering around and collecting these skulls. And if anyone gets close to him, he starts hurling axes at him. And he's got this kind of bearskin cape poncho thing, and it's got like 100 axes inside. And he wields axes. That's what he does. And this image here is the second hardcover volume that we'll do next year, and that's by also Das Pastores. And it's kind of like the whole story is a play on. The whole story is a little bit of like I'm going back to the stuff I loved as a kid, like action movies and Masters of the Universe and whatnot. And so I kind of wanted my version of Skeletor, like an over-the-top version of Skeletor for that.
So it's like it's a sort of adult Masters of the Universe, if you like.
Yeah, like Heavy Metal magazine meets Masters of the Universe. I call that genre muscle tech because everyone's like overly gigantic and covered in technology. So so and that's him there. And then if you on that one where it was the Das Pastores painting, I really wanted his eyes to be spiders. I wanted spiders in his eyes so he could have like eyelashes that move. And when the spiders move, he looks like he's looking around and stuff. So that's our main bad guy. And it's just this over the top, like that's his first kill that we see him in the book. And I thought he's got axes. The first thing I'm going to do is have him swat somebody, with the broadside of an axe to really, to get readers into the, like he's not just going to chop someone in half. He's going to splat them, So. Yeah,
and you weren't kidding about his bulk, the size of this guy. He's huge, isn't he?
Yeah, he's mega. And on that page there, that's kind of the lead in. I took a lot of tropes in the book that were like unreliable narrator, and this girl is kind of she's known as a liar, and so her dad says if she's going to keep making up stories, that it's best to write them down. And so it opens up and she's kind of drawing the story and kind of fades into the story. But
what a cool idea. I really like
it. So it's really like, to me, it's a really important story too. I've talked about it in some other interviews, but we had our first child 3 years ago and she had a lot of medical complications. We ended up living in the Ronald McDonald house at the NICU while she was healing up for a few months. She had a bunch of stomach surgeries, and at the time, everyone's like, give it over to God or trust the doctors. But just as a man, you want to be able to fix something. And so I drew this character who was like, didn't listen to anyone, fixed everything his way, but his way is going to be wielding axes. And kind of like I had a problem I couldn't fix. I started giving him plot points that he couldn't fix by chopping into. So he would need to develop and grow. And so it was really reflective of my situation. So when he kind of came to me in my time of need, I was like, man, I'm making this book no matter what. I knew I wasn't going to ask permission to make it. I knew I was going to start drawing it right away. And that's what I did for the last year and a half. I funded the book out of pocket. I probably put a little over $20,000 into getting it colored and letter, editor, book designer.
And that's a big commitment, isn't it? To put all that in. As you've explained, this book means a lot to you personally. It's sort of your personal book that you have to tell. I think every writer probably has one of those in their life, and that is a big, huge responsibility though to sort of fund it like that in your own way. But obviously you've also gone and you've gone to crowdfunding, haven't you, to sort of not just recoup that, but actually make the book a success and make it profitable. And you've had some fantastic success on your campaign.
When we launched the campaign, there was obviously, do you go with Indiegogo? Do you go with Kickstarter? But there was this new company last year called Zoop, and they line up the fulfillment and the printer and all the stuff I don't really know anything about. And I knew I wasn't ever going to mail this stuff out if I was going to draw it. So I needed as much help as possible. But the problem was they at the time had a very small footprint in the crowdfunding community. They were kind of a startup. So they reached out to me when they saw it online and said, you know, would I want to come there? And I talked to them and I liked the guys and I kind of verbally committed, but didn't sign anything. And then Kickstarter saw it. And then they said they would give me their featured spot, the Projects We Love spot. And I was like, oh God, am I going to be a man of my word? Yeah. So I was like, am I going to be a man of my word? Or am I going to go? Because that Projects We Love spot gets a lot of promotion and they generally do really well. And I didn't know if this thing was going to launch and make $10,000 or whatever. But Zoop was, I went back to Zoop and I said, hey, they're offering me this spot. We got to make this a winner because I'm really risking something now. And what happened was, you know, they negotiated with me and I got them to work with my art rep who I knew who could sell the stuff, sell the original art really well with it all being oversized and so many pages. And so a couple of complete chapters have already sold, which add $69,000 to the campaign. And then we're releasing another 50 pages. So that should add hopefully another $30,000 or so to the campaign. So that's been about half the campaign. The other half, we're getting close to 100. So total right now before the art drop, we're at over 150,000 with 1,100 backers. And we've sold about 1,300 books and we got a week to go. So yeah, the gamble's paying off. Like as of right now, financially speaking, you know, let's say if Marvel paid me $300 a page, or that's their average. Well, I'm making more than that now. I got an IP that I own forever that I can keep reselling. I've had publishers come to me now and make me great offers to get the soft cover out, you know, in the next year or two if I want to. So now like betting on myself is really starting to pay off. Other than you have the stress of putting a book together, you know, and dealing with, you know.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, this must have been quite taxing hours-wise. I mean, how many hours a day are you having to work?
This must be Ax-Wielder Jon in the snow, mustn't it? That last one.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be him.
I mean, you must be putting in like incredible hours.
Yeah, I mean, I was working out the math, math as Americans call it. 148 pages. You said you've been working on this for 1.5 years. You're writing it. You're penciling it, you're inking it. When do you sleep?
Yeah, inking it oversized. Well, the main story is only 108 pages, but we got 6 pages by Dos Pastoros, 2 other short stories that we're saving for releases, and then we're going to put a little process stuff, and I got some wonderful pinups from a bunch of artists. But the next volume is 148 because this one's kind of an intro setup for the next one. It's a complete story, but there's some questions that linger. So it's 108 page what I had to do, but also writing it took a long time. I actually put a lot of time into the writing. It was more taxing than I realized. You lay something out A, B, and C, but then all of a sudden F wants to show up and be in front of A, and you're weaving a story now, putting a puzzle together, and doing that. It's such an organic it was something I hadn't journeyed down before. So I'm like learning how to write, learning the process. I don't have a writing routine, you know. It's like I go to the shower and start taking a shower. Something comes to me and I call some buddies. Do you think this works? This works. And then, you know, go back and forth. So it's been a real organic process as far as the writing goes. The art has been easy because I've worked professionally for 14 years now in comics. So it's kind of like once I get the writing done and then the layout done, it's like it's only work at that point. And to answer your question as far as how long it took, each panel took me at least a day. So a page, it's 11 by 17 each panel. So I print out each panel and then I'll pencil and ink it, and then we'll go from there, you know. So yeah.
I mean, I must say this is the first time I've looked at the Zoop platform, you know, in use, as it were. I've looked at their website.
It's been a bit, because I was going to say they're doing the Ukraine anthology, so it's been I think it's becoming a big success. I think you backed the right horse on this one, Nick, and I dare say it works both ways. With the success you have, it's success for them, and it's another outlet out there on top of Kickstarter, on top of Indigo, both of which I know have had their problems in one way or another in the public's eye. So it's nice that you've got room for Zoop. It's nice that Zoop approached you, and it's nice that you're doing so successfully on it. With 6 days to go, it must be quite an intense process. You were saying off there how much time you're having to find to sort of be on shows like this, and also, I dare say, to balance that with family life and what's left to put into the first graphic novel.
Yeah, it's tough balancing a whole creative team. And just a little example, like you have a letterer, you have a designer, you have a colorist, you have a flatter. You might have to have 2 colorists because the guys are going slow. And then they all might have their own way of wanting a file. One guy likes Dropbox. One guy wants file share. One guy wants X, Y, and Z. Oh, they all also like different ways of being paid. So now I'm signing up.
Nick, you're the boss.
Online.
Yeah,
I know. I
lay
told my
down the
editor,
law, man.
I said at the end, I said, next book, dude, it's gonna be, and everyone. I do this too, but people want to be paid friends and family. Now I can't write it off. There's like all kinds of like stuff that I usually don't have to worry about, that are just like now they're falling on my shoulders. And usually I'm the one they're hitting up to make the deadline. Now I got 4 or 5 mini me's just paying me back.
You're on the other side.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. So like so yeah, it's cool. And then on the page layout, it's super cool because what they did, the guy who laid this out was Eric Moss, and he's one of the guys that run it, but he kind of scoured my social media for the last year. And this is something I would recommend a lot of. I mean, it worked for me, so maybe it works for you for other crowdfunding campaigns. But I knew I was going to crowdfund this, and I knew a lot of the book was going to be complete before I launched. I didn't want to just be a couple of pages. So for the last year, I've just been teasing Ax-Wielder Jon. And then every now and then you get a retweet from a big pro saying this is awesome. Well, that's a pull quote for me, So what Eric did was before it launched, he scoured my social media, and he was like, hey, Hickman said this was amazing. This guy said this guy said this, and he kind of put it all on the page for people to check out. So if you go to Ax-Wielder.com, I bought that URL. You can kind of see a year's worth of, stuff that we've been building and working on. So yeah, it's super cool, man. And then I talked to Rob Guillory, who's the artist on Chew and Farmhand at Image, and he's a good buddy. And when Kickstarter reached out and I had that big Zoom call with them, and I called him, I'm like, man, I already told Zoop yes, but Kickstarter just said, they give me this spot. And he's like, no, be a man of your word. You got the right feeling, and you don't know what Zoop is going to become. They might be the big player, and you might have one of the biggest projects on their platform, and you can really develop a relationship. Where Kickstarter, there's so much there, you're not like being the big fish in the small pond could be a beneficial thing. And so, and then right now, like I'm not done yet, I'm talking to publishers about, a couple years down the line, rolling out soft cover distribution, and the distribution channels that I'm going for are like, Penguin Random House and stuff overseas, and pushing into Southeast Asia with some translators. And I really want to, there'd
definitely be a market over there for your stuff, I would say, Nick. Like your style, it's so transcontinental. I mean, we've had some comments actually. Mighty Johnny, striking art, very European, nice.
Oh yeah. I love Quietly, Mobius, and all those.
You can see that in there, man.
Yeah.
It's good.
When people say European, they mean really, really good art.
What they mean, it's good, yeah.
Oh yeah, you mean the best stuff. I'm not saying I'm as good as those guys, but those guys are my guiding lights. Jeff Darrow, Frank Quietly, Mobius, Seth Fisher. Early on in my career, those are my top 4 that I definitely strive to.
But listen, I've never met an artist who isn't modest, so we can take that modesty off you. I mean, it's intense, it's vibrant. I mean, even the stuff we've seen. I mean, is there anything you can tell us about the main bad guy and why he looks like he's inside a monster himself?
Yeah, no. So every character in the book, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Western Unforgiven. Have you guys ever watched that movie?
Yeah, big fan.
There's kind of an underlying element where William Money is Clint Eastwood, and he's this old retired gunfighter, and he's now trying to live the life of a docile pig farmer. But something happens that gets him out of retirement, and he's got to knock the rust off. But when people are talking about different characters in that movie, Little Bill, who's the big sheriff of the town, or English Bob, who's having a book written about him, you'll notice
the Duck of Death.
Yeah, the Duck of Death.
Good old Richard Harris.
The cool thing about the way that was written was so much is being said about these characters from other points of view that's informing your thing about them. And a lot of people absorb those compliments and puff their chest up. Like English Bob has gotten a book. Little Bill's got his ego. The Schofield kids, he's bragging about. But anytime William Money gets that compliment, he's like, I don't remember. Must have been luck. I've always been lucky that way. He never accepts and there was something like so stoic and cool about that. So when writing Jon, I really wanted them to be saying these over the top things. But then I really liked how stereotypes work. I know people hate stereotypes, but I kind of love them because you get to see people from the outside. We categorize and judge. But then as a writer, you can get intimate with the character, show them do something different. And then all of a sudden you get these two mirrors of this that actually holds the vessel of that person. And so with Lord Fang and with every character in the book, they all have a planned twist of some kind. And obviously Lord Fang's vaginal design is going to come into play down the line,
Yeah, he's an interesting character for sure. He just visually alone. I'm just going to bring this up again because a question from Barry Renshaw. Taking a look at the preview pages looks fantastic. Also loves your art on the Hickman books. Will the book be available through Diamond? You alluded that you have got other distribution.
So the hardcovers, any deal I do with the publisher, nothing's been signed yet for a softcover distribution. Anything that I'll have next year's campaign will be an oversized hardcover as well. I'm going to do all oversized hardcovers. They're only going to be available in they're only going to be available in on the crowdfunding campaign, but we've got huge retailer support, so they could be in your local shops. I'm talking to Forbidden Planner right now about ordering bundles for all of their shops, and so I think they might want an exclusive cover. If I can ink a deal with them, we'll have some representation over there. As far as soft cover distribution goes, I'm really trying to find a publisher that has Penguin Random House and overseas. It ends with Bury. It's the Harry Potter guys, the distribution chain. I'm learning all about distribution chains right now. And so I don't know if it'll be in Diamond or if it'll be in regular bookstores, but the deals that I'm looking at, I'm really looking at trying to have an upfront model and reach for crowdfunding, and then a back end model to get into bookstores. And that's my goal. I don't know if I'll get that deal, but that's what I'm shooting for. So as of right now, not in the next 2 years will it be available as a soft cover, but at some point I definitely want to get the soft cover out, and I am negotiating with publishers now to try to do that. So it's a vague answer. So if you want it anytime soon, or at least within the next year or 2 years, the campaign's the way to go. Yeah. If not, we've got 300 and something copies have been ordered by retailers, and if we can ink that Forbidden Planet deal, there could be we could have some more overseas too. So we'll see.
That'd be really cool. I mean, it is a very different audience sometimes, the crowdfunding audience and the direct market. I find sometimes you are selling to very different people.
I believe that
it's worth reaching out.
I believe that to be the case. A case example would be, I don't know if you know the artist of Ultra Mega, James Herron. Have y'all ever seen his work?
Oh yeah, great artist.
Yes.
Love his work.
I think he's incredible, and people love his work. But like an old shop owner who's used to Jim Lee variants and stuff, they might not know his work because they're trying to fill their stores with Spider-Man and Batman. Maybe they don't know him as well. But you see his online social media, and you see 50,000 likes and retweets, and he's got 10 times the reach I have. And I just think I wanted to tell him and say, man, take that to the people that see your stuff online, that are copying your style, and make your cool book, and don't sell it for anything. Hold all the rights and see what's out there. And then you still can get your work's amazing. You can get a great deal on the back end too, if you can do it. And then obviously it's hard to do that. It's hard to be this was a very walking out on a limb when you make a crowdfunding campaign. You're walking out and saying, what am I worth to people in the public? And if this crowdfunding campaign failed, then that's my representative. My forward-facing worth is a failed crowdfunding campaign. Now I got to go crawl back and beg for page rates. But if it's a win, now you're a commodity. Now, if we can get this campaign, I think we're going to add another 30,000 and more original art sales that my art rep is selling now. he's going to put that final total in. We'll be at like 190, and maybe we can push to 200. Now, when I go pitch this to book publishers, this was a $200,000 campaign. I wrote and drew it myself. I've got pull quotes from the best of the best in the industry. I think it's written pretty good. You know, of course, some of those guys are just friendly and throwing me a bone, you know, so maybe it's not that good. But hey, I'm going to sell it as it's the best thing ever. But like really betting on yourself and seeing, like, it's a gamble, but I love to gamble. You know, I'm a degenerate, so why not try to do it?
I think you have to do it. I think it's a point in life where you have to take that chance, don't you? Whatever it is that you do, even if, you know, whether you're a creative or not, you know, you have to take that chance that this is the thing that defines me. This is what I want to do, so I'm going to go for it. And you know, when you've worked hard, you know, you've been doing comics professionally for over a decade now.
Years.
So yeah, I mean, you sort of earned your place, if you like, at the table, I would say. And why not now? You know, you've just got to take that leap, I think. And I think a lot of creators are feeling that way at the moment. I think there's a lot of creators out there with those feelings. And what would your advice be to those creators who are struggling with that decision to make that leap, if they're not, an inherent gambler?
I mean, the way, think about before I made this decision, you think about the way society's moving. All of the social media platforms are making everyone an individual star. So before it was a tree trunk with apples, and let's call that tree trunk Marvel, right? You have to go and try to be one of those apples and sustain yourself off of that tree. Well, now all the fruit is ripened, right? And maybe the trees, maybe it's poisoned because of whatever nonsense they're doing, because they've got to make decisions based on shareholders that might be flooding the market with variants or things that aren't really sustaining a thing. But the truth is, the life is actually provided by the apples at this point. And so some of those are going to fall and roll down the hill and create a new system. And I think we're just going to shatter and have tons of little publishers and tons of little pockets of little pockets of little businesses. But what's the glue? The glue is shows like yours. How do we get all of us in a network and reach people that with new audiences to show that, because we don't have the branding, we don't have the footprint. How do we get that footprint? Well, clearly it's through social media. And so you need to, I would say, develop relationships, go to Patreons of shows you like and start contributing. And as you are making your book, I would say for me, it was inverted. If I work for Marvel, they won't let me show anything. But if I work for myself, I can show it all. And if I keep showing it all, I keep hooking another reader throughout the year without knowing who every retweet is a potential sell, right? And I just really inverted everything as much as I could and really tried to think about what the future of my publishing business would be. And it was more inherent towards my own tendencies to overshare, to do insane work. And that insane work it represents me in a real raw way. So I was going to bring this to market and use I don't have any business sense. I'm just trying to be logical about it. Get on this show, get on this show. If anyone wants to interview me, pitch it. And the most important thing, the same thing Frank quietly says, it's got to be incredible work. Like, do your best work. If you're going to bet on yourself, do your best work. So it is impressive, you know, and that way people want it based on the aesthetics alone. If you're an artist, if you're a writer, you know, try to hook up with the guys that you gel with the most, and is the best talent you can possibly get to really show off your skill set, because the best story can live and die with bad art. And just like, but like a bad story with incredible art, really, you're not going to get to read the story anyway with crowdfunding. So the incredible art is really all you need. At least hire a great cover artist, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still figuring it out. And I knew I had a couple aces up my sleeve with Felix Comic Art. I know privately what my art sells for. So I knew that if I gave him 100 pages of work and I could get a third party Zoop to work with a third party like Felix Comic Art, I knew the total in my head was going to be a no fail, because I know Felix is good as his job, right? But if I went to Kickstarter and said, hey, work with a third party with your platform conjointly, they would have said, screw off, right? But I knew that Zoop, I had some weight there because Zoop wanted the project. And I said, okay, well, you got to work in tandem with a couple of things so I can get my little business model down, because I don't want this to be a forward-facing failure. I want it to be an ultimate success. And usually I don't sell most of my art. I usually just sell a little bit, and I usually take that money, and I'm an original art collector, and I buy other people's art. Now I'm like, I told Felix, you sell every page that you can possibly sell, because I want that total going up. So this looks like a public facing winner. This is very important to me when I started this project. So I'm just doing things, the bigger this number is, and almost if I sell something as a loss leader, it's almost a good thing. Like that toy, I have an action figure on there, and
I saw that.
I lost so much money on that toy, right? But it costs a fortune to make, and get it machined and all this stuff. But it still adds a couple $1,000s to the campaign, even if it's
cool.
Yeah, and it's cool, Or if it's a break even thing, like the lithograph I'm working with. I talked about Seth Fisher. Well, his brother is a lithographer, and he reached out and said, "I know Seth meant a lot to you. He's my brother. Do you want to go in together and make this lithograph?" And lithographs are very expensive to set up, thousands of dollars to set up. And just the one sheet of paper of lithograph paper that's all nice and cotton's $50. And that's on my end. And then you go back and you sell them to galleries for $500 a piece. Well, I knew the market wouldn't probably buy $500 lithographs because they're used to prints, So I said, okay, let's cut that to 200. And every dime we make off this campaign is yours, because you're giving me such a discount. I would have to sell out before I'd even have enough money to pay you for the setup. He said, good, done. So on something like that, I'm increasing the total of my campaign, but the money's going to other vendors, But I didn't care, because one, I think the items are cool. Like, I love toys, I love art. So having those added, and let's say, maybe I lose a couple bucks per toy because I didn't really plan that out, because I'm not a good businessman. But it's still cool
this time around.
Yeah, this time around. But I'm learning all this stuff. And also, I don't mind that. Like, it makes my product feel a little more official to have pieces that could go in a fine art gallery, or to have little action figures for the character.
It's an investment, isn't it? It's an investment in your IP, if you like, because those things they carry weight, and people remember those things when they, it gives them something to hang on to. It increases the likelihood that they're going to come back for more as well, I'd say.
Yeah. But so I'm learning a lot, and I just have my mind. Your mind floats into your art page when you're an artist, but now as a business, it's kind of got all these moving parts. And I'm trying to think about the holistic view of the industry and where it's going forward. And I didn't want to work for anyone else anymore. And I might still have to. And if the right gig comes along, of course, it'd be cool to play on the Hulk or whatever. But why would I do that now if my page rate is $1,000 a page to own my own IP for the rest of my life? Why would I settle for that 300? You're going to have to make me a better offer, because I'm doing something I love. And building my own thing. And Jeff Darrow called me recently from France, and he talked about that with Shaolin Cowboy, that everyone's like, why don't you work on Deadpool, or why don't you work on Spider-Man? He's like, you don't think I get those offers all the time? He's like, because he said, because I don't want to be the 5,000th person that worked on Spider-Man. I want to be the guy who created Shaolin Cowboy. And he said, you're thinking the right way with Ax-Wielder. And he was being really supportive and sweet. Some of that's my wording. I don't want to put any words in Jeff's mouth. He's much nicer.
That's the gist of it, basically.
The gist of it was that, like Mignola is making Hellboy. It's almost like the character's out in front of the creator, but it's so in tandem associated. And if it's a cool character, like those two characters are, it almost bolsters up the creator. And I really want Ax-Wielder to be that character for me.
I mean, I love your anthology about the apple trees. I've never seen the comic book industry described in such an eloquent way. If that's any hint at the writing behind this new graphic novel, I think people are going to be very, very pleased, not just with the artwork, but with the story. And do you know what? We got to the 40-minute mark. We haven't even talked about what the story is about. We've talked about everything else. We've talked about you saying that you don't know a lot about business. It sounds like you know a lot about business, and I'm sure it's been a huge learning curve over the year and a half. And I'm sure that second action figure will make money. But it sounds to me like you've got everything screwed in, you've got everything sorted. But it comes back to what's the story about? What is Ax-Wielder Jon all about? You've alluded to it. What would people expect if they want to back this campaign? Because I know the minute I come off here, I'm backing this because I love the artwork. I love the style. I'm a big fan of yours. But just the way you're talking about it, obviously it's a passion project. But like I said, that allusion to the apple tree just really, really tickled my funny bone. That very good, very good.
Like I had to throw something esoteric out there to sound smarter than I am. But
no. Well, just dumb it down for the rest of us then. What's this barbarian comic about?
Well, he's a faceless barbarian in a world of monsters and mayhem, and he makes a precious discovery and soon finds out what a man is willing to lose in order to protect what he loves most. And it's this it's over the top, bombastic art. I've drawn it bigger than I think anyone's ever. Each page is 33 by 17. Each board, it's enormous, like the size of a door. And I'm drawing, to the max. And I'm in writing wise, if you're worried about the writing, I've got wonderful pull quotes from Hickman, who's a collaborator, so you can't really trust. But there's I'm trying to get one from Brian K. Vaughan. We send the script to John Carpenter, the director and writer.
Oh, cool, cool. We know John Carpenter.
We're overnighting him a version of it, but he's agreed to read it at least. So we'll see. I'm trying to get him to do the intro of the book, and then we got pull quotes from Bill Sienkiewicz, Jay Lee, Frank Quietly,
excellent.
Just everybody. We got Mike Allred said some really nice things about it. This early rough PDF I sent you guys, it's readable enough to where people can get the gist of the story. So that was a big thing too that I didn't mention that really helped, is having so much of it complete. I'm able to send it out for early reviews and actually get a blog post about it as the book is being available. I preface it, please don't spoil anything. So whenever I get these spoil-free reviews, I can share them on my social media. And if you only got 3 or 4 pages done, you might not get that kind of press. You might not get that opportunity. So that was something that I knew as well. But yeah, it's my love letter to Masters of the Universe. He's a character who showed up to me. I'm a big fan of the comic book Flex Mentallo by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. And in that narrative, the protagonist creates Flex in book 1, and then Flex shows up later and saves him when he's like a drugged out, musician. And it was weird, like, Grant Morrison and Alan Moore, they love hermetics and magical thinking. And for me, that, like, my real life Flex Mentallo was Ax-Wielder Jon. Like I sketched him in a sketchbook. He came to me in my time of need. Now he's going to provide for my family, which, as a new father too, not just having my daughter's completely healthy now, by the way, but we messed up and had 2 back-to-back. A little advice to your listeners: you can definitely get pregnant while breastfeeding. All right, unlike what my wife told me. So she got pregnant back to back. So just in case, don't let your
accidents.
Don't let your wife's trick you. So we got 2 little girls now. I've been in the hole, like in this dirty room. Obviously, you're welcome to look at my wonderful dirty mess I live in. And I've been working on this book, and now he's blossomed, and now he's this thing providing for me, and that's a big, we attach so much of what we are as men to what we can achieve. And I know that people are like, what the hell is Nick doing, not working for a year and a half and spending money on these toys and stuff or whatever he's doing. But now it's like, my wife doesn't look down on me so much, because this thing's a success. So
there's a certain poetry to that, isn't there? The fact that the thing that you turn to in a time of need is in fact the thing that has pulled you through. That's there's a simplicity to that, a simple poetry, and it's a nice story. We've got a few comments I'm just going to share. I'll get through them before the end. Another one from Barry. So Zoop are also printing Jean-Paul Léon's The Winter Men Artist Edition, which is another high-profile project. Definitely a platform to watch. And then he goes on to say, there definitely feels like a shift to the audience wanting more individual and personal projects rather than the mass-produced work from the corporations, which will always be recycled and rebooted. And the crowdfunding platforms are supporting that. Smaller audiences, but much more invested in the work. Yeah.
Yeah, Barry nails it. And I'll address the Zoop thing first, and the John Paul Leon hardcover, the artist edition.
Yeah,
that was a big reason why I went with them. They did that fulfillment and didn't charge their 25% surcharge for their services for his family. And then I knew that even though it was a new platform, the product was cool. And so the product brought the people, not the platform. And it kind of lined up with my mindset. The individuals are actually, the apples are what people want. They don't care about that tree, versus like it needs, like people still have, I need the Image brand, which, I have, but I need the Marvel brand. I need people, as we come up, we're always thinking, oh, if I can only get there, if I can only get there. I'm kind of off that tree now. I still work for those guys, but now I'm thinking, well, what can I grow now on my own? And there is an intimacy. If you look at people's YouTube channels and they see you creating it and they see your passion for it, and then they've been in comic books at least a decade, and they see the characters that they thought that storyline meant so much the first time you saw it, but now it's back again and they're alive again, and now it's dead again, and now you don't care
meaning,
no more.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it loses its meaning. But with these new characters and these and betting on these individuals, especially creatives you like or are fans of, you're going to get something fresh and something that's untamed, like, or it's like so much of what we have to do at the big two, or it's neutered in a sense, it doesn't feel special anymore. At least for me, at my point, because I've been around, I've been reading longer than I've been working. And then you see it and you just see the same thing again. Magneto's back, and Xavier's walking again, and he's not walking again. And like, okay, well, the first time he walked, I was like, he's walking. This is awesome. Like, what's going on? And now he's doing it again. It doesn't, and it's all second act. As a creative, they're not really getting anywhere, and it's lost its meaning. So, and I do think there is, like, you build this intimate relationship. And then there's this investment in the creator that that if they're willing to put themselves out there, that the fans tie themselves to. And then to be like if Ax-Wielder Jon's successful, and it is going to be successful now, but now they're like you started. Could you imagine if you were one of the early backers of Hellboy? You'd be like, well, I started there. There's like a piece of you that feels like you're
part of it, aren't you?
You're part of it. And it's a very entangled quantum theory thing where it's a symbiotic relationship in that way, where like it's just super cool, and I love crowdfunders, and I love when people bet on themselves. So I said, I'm going to bet on myself, and it's working out. But yeah, I do see like that's the future, but I still love the stores, and I still love the distribution channels, and I want it all over the world. So why can't you have both? Why do you have to settle on either? And that's my goal now, privately, with dealing with lawyers and publishers and stuff, is can I get that kind of channel for the soft cover in a couple of years down the line and really create a property that has some global awareness? Is what I hope to do with it.
So in your universe that you're building up from the sort of bottom up, there's kind of real world consequences. If a character dies, like in the last episode of Better Call Saul, have you seen that yet, Shay?
No, not yet. Don't give it away.
I'm not giving anything away. So if someone dies in your book, they're going to stay dead unless it serves the story. Because it seems to me, because you're doing it through graphic novels, you're not having to pump it out month after month after month, where maybe the imagination has to give up to the fuel of the story having to come out. You can tell your story at the pace you want to tell it, over the time you want to tell it.
Yeah, and I know the whole story. I know the very ending shots. Like the cover artist Das Pastores is a painter, and he's not easy to get. He's works with Jodorowsky, and he does long-term projects where he paints graphic novels. So what I did was hire him to illustrate the epilogue sequences at the end of each book. So he's privately been working on those. So I've had to know I wanted to know I really hate when I work with a writer and they don't know the ending to a story. Like, it's so annoying. I'm like, I'm over here dying in these panels, adding all this stuff, and you guys can't figure out the ending. Like, we're just going to wing it. I do not like that. So like, I knew, because like you're putting together a clock, like this thing turns over here and then this thing turns over here. And this might be a story beat here that then adds a different light to something over here. Well, if you just start drawing linearly, ding, 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 you're not really, you're paying attention to the sequential narrative, but you're not paying attention to the whole. It's like if you were a cook, you're you're worried about the cuisine and how the palates cleanse and all this, as if you're a holistic writer, versus I'm just worried about putting a lot of pepper on my mashed potatoes. Well, I don't want to do this. I want to be a chef. You know, I want to be someone who's presenting you something. And so with Ax-Wielder, I know exactly when everyone dies, when, you know, nobody comes back from the dead in Ax-Wielder Jon. And so if when you read it, you like a character, the only thing I can promise you is very, very few survive. Very few.
Wow.
I mean, it's an Ax-Wielding book. You know what I mean?
So it's an epic scale story, but you're saying that you know how long it's going to last for. You know which beat. Obviously, there's going to be changes down the road, like you've already said in this first book. So you know how this story ends in God knows how many years.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do the structure of it was such as I was tired of the monthly grind of comic books. One, I draw too slow for it. But my example I keep telling people is Arthur Adams, right? If he just did one book a year, it would be an evergreen book every year. You know, it would be the best book. But instead, he's doing 20 covers because that's the demand for him, which is good for him. He makes 10,000 on the original, and he gets the huge commission from Marvel, and his name is bigger than ever. But what I really want out of him is that one sequential story that can always be on my shelf. So I said, okay, you have that critique, and you're not going to critique anymore. You're going to create. Like I always have this saying, don't critique, create. If you don't like the business model, then create the business model. There's this William Blake quote there. He says, I must create a system or be slave to another man's, right? And so I don't want to be slave to another man's system. So on this, I'm going to do, if I can do, 5 issues a year, super oversized and detailed, make it look incredible, put out a hardcover volume a year, tell my volumes, because I actually love oversized hardcovers. So make the oversized hardcover if you want it. You don't like the schedule, then you make your own schedule and you stick to it. You don't like the system of what variants and everything everyone's doing, then you make a better system. And I'm trying to take each step with Jon as the lead and that product as the lead, and him as like a hero of mine as a lead, to not critique and complain and be frustrated with the industry, but take every step that's in line with what my heart says. Right. And that could be in business, or that could be in a contract, or that can be like, if I think, that makes me feel weird. Like something in a contract you'll see quite a bit is you've got to do litigation if something goes sideways in New York or California. Well, I'm in Texas. If something goes sideways, I can't afford to go there. So I just say, Ax-Wielder Jon would say, no, you come to Texas if I got to sue you. And then guess what? If they want the book, they kind of say, okay. And then, you know what I mean?
Stuff what would Ax-Wielder Jon say? That's your philosophy in life.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of you coming up, and I'm sure most creatives, like, we put these goals they're almost things that we don't own. Like, I really want to work on Spider-Man. I would love to draw all the foes of Spider-Man and the juxtapositions of the small and big characters. I want to be that 5-year-old playing with my action figures again. But once you get there, you don't own them. You're never going to be rewarded truly. They're not going to take care of you. You've seen, I mean, are you better than Alan Moore and everyone that's been screwed over by that? You're not, trust me. Like you're not, you know what you're getting into. So there's just this part of me that wants to just do my own thing, just do my own thing completely, and not ask to be able to create something. I'm the creator. I don't want to say, please, will you edit, or please, will you say yes to me? I don't want to tell some 24-year-old who just finished college, who hasn't even read Frank Quietly's work or Grant Morrison's work, that has an intern gig. I don't want to ask that. I'm not going to ask that person, as much as I'm happy for them. I'm glad you got that job, but you don't know what I know. You don't have the mind for the industry I have. So I'm not going to ask you if I can make something that came to me when my daughter was in critical condition. That's so far below me that I said, I'm not doing that, and that's just the best way I can explain the motivation behind just doing it all myself.
You're taking responsibility for your own destiny as well, aren't you, Nick? Basically, because it's interesting what you said before. Don't be a complainer or whatever. You do see a lot of that, people, complaining about the industry a hell of a lot, but then still happy to work within that industry that they're complaining about. And I think your attitude of like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to be responsible for it, for my income, for my product, for everything that I do. I really admire that, and I think that's an attitude. I think that's a healthy attitude to have, actually, that sort of self-responsible attitude.
Yeah, it's a stressful one because you're branching out from getting a script, hitting a deadline, drawing the little panels. Now you're having to think about a lot more stuff. But I am the happiest I've ever been creatively, and a lot of that angst and frustration that we all have as creatives. And hey, trust me, I complain too. I don't do it publicly, but I complain, you know. But I was just like, so many of the people critiquing stuff aren't making the steps to make it better. They're just kind of like a cog in a, they're an apple on the tree that maybe their income's going down, so the thing's shriveling. They got some worms in them now, but they refuse to leave that tree, you know. Like
that analogy serves a lot of purposes, doesn't it?
I mean, they just refuse to leave the tree, but we, I mean, the creatives have the power. The individuals in society have a voice now. There used to be 5 channels on the telly back in for forever, right? Now there's YouTube with every individual can explode. Like, think about the millions of channels and how much your show, all these shows that are individualized for content. All the power is on the individual. The social media expansion, for all of its bad, has got way more good because all the individuals have voices now. All the the media wants to control those voices half the time, right? They're like, don't say this, don't say that. But this is an explosion. Well, that same thing can happen in the creative community, and it is happening. And I just think that's where it's going to go. And then these big machines, these big Marvel machines, or these DC machines with all their overhead, they're not as flexible. They can't make the quick decisions. They are beholden to quarterly stake earnings. Otherwise, they got to start slashing stuff. And I've watched I've seen some projects that they had lined up at the big 2 that would blow your mind, that they axed because, you know, somebody at the top got switched spots.
Heartbreaking.
I'm like, you
I
could
hear
have
stories like that all the time.
You're gonna have this guy on the Hulk, and you guys pulled the plug on that. And I'll tell you guys off air. But I'm just like, you could have had this. You could have revolutionized your line for like the modern age. But they make these short-sighted. But then they kind of have to, because it's a slow-moving system.
They're trapped into it.
And so, like, I don't know. I mean, I can rant about this all day, but I get repetitive. So you can tell I don't leave my room and socialize much. You know what I mean?
That's what we're here for, Nick. You know, we that's part of the service. We'll let you rant it all out. You'll end
I thought it was the big Texan personality coming through, Nick. That's what I put it down to.
But I think the consumer, for want of a better word, are now wise as well, aren't they? They're wise to the fact that they don't have to consume what they're told. You know, they don't have to go to that big brand. They don't have to go to that big corporation. They can find what they like, especially the younger guys. You know, that the whole generation now have only ever known that. You know, they don't even understand the idea of, well, why would I go to that corporation when I can choose what I want on YouTube? You know, it's alien to them, that idea. And, you know, as time goes on, it's going to become more and more the norm. And people are, you know, they know that there is a market there, because the market is creating itself. They're saying, we don't want to read the same thing all the time or consume the same TV or movies or whatever. We want to find what we want. We want to find what we like. And they like to have that connection as well with the creator. I mean, David Bowie predicted this many, many years ago when he said, you know, the relationship between the artist and the audience is going to dramatically change, and the internet will be a part of that. I mean, he predicted that long time before anyone else suspected it, I think. And he was dead right. You know, the whole relationship between artist and audience is evolved. And I think it is, as you say, for the better. And I think, you know, everybody benefits from that in the long run, except for maybe the big corporations.
Yeah, I've heard that interview, and I've heard that interview with David Bowie when it was like in the 90s, when it was like early, you know, dial-up internet. Dude, he predicted so much. And there's another, it escapes me, but he's got another really great quote on creating and not selling yourself short or selling yourself to corporations. And he's kind of the little bit I've heard him when he talks specifically about the business or the future of what creating in the, you know, 10 or 20 years from when he was speaking, he's been dead on. It's been really cool to listen to those.
Yeah, an inspiration.
And the people who take, I mean, one of my favorite bands is NoFX, and all their career, they've been in charge of their own destiny. They've been in charge of their own record label. And it just, and I can hear it in you, Nick, that optimism, that enthusiasm. that love, not only for what you do, but that belief in yourself, the belief in the character, the belief in probably where you're going to be in 5 years' time, where you're going to be in 10 years' time. It must be a very exciting time with all the stress. It must be a very exciting time for you, Nick, as a creative.
There's been rewarding times. It's been a lot of stress, but there's been like the most rewarding. Like, I know Jeff Darrow is a dear hero to me. And so to have him write me on Facebook and say, Nick, I want to talk to you, and then get a random call through Facebook, and it's from France, and it's Jeff Darrow. I know he only wrote because he saw the art. I know he only wrote because he wants to know what I'm up to. And that's like, that's bigger than winning an Eisner. That's like so cool to me. And then like, I'll name drop somebody else, Mark Miller or Mark Millar, however you want to say his name. Like the authority with Quietly is what got me drawing comic books so very early on. Well, he saw my stuff on Instagram, and he's off social media now, right? But he's like, Nick, couldn't help myself, signed into the Millar World account. And he sent me a bunch of money signs. He's like, this Ax-Wielder money signs. And then he signed off, and then he asked to read it and stuff, right? So I'm like, dude, that's the guy that got me drawn. So I push so like having those little exchanges, I know I'm doing something right. I don't know. And at the time when I got those messages and that call from Jeff, the campaign wasn't a success. I still wasn't sure if it was going to make $20,000 or whatever. But then like getting the money and showing that we have over 1,000 supporters. The supporters mean more than the money. The money is, my day-to-day life is going to be the same. But like 1,000 people out there, 1,100 are interested enough in me in this project, or believe in the book enough to where they'll support it. And I'm like, each one of those people are a blessing, like I can't thank them enough. And then that feels super rewarding. It's like, wow, like I didn't fall on my face. And so like you have these moments where you're like truly great, like gratitude's a big thing in our house. Like you got to be grateful for the stuff. And I'm truly grateful to them. It means a lot. And then, but then it's hard not to just get sucked in. Like, why hasn't the colorist written me back? Why does this guy want to get paid in a weird way? Like running a business stuff. But there are those moments where you go, this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. So yeah. And then they've been the best moments for sure. They've been the best moments because I know that, and this is me patting myself on the back, I knew it was like a vision I had when my daughter was sick. And I know it's me and my effort that's gotten it here so far. And there's still a lot more work to do, so I can't congratulate myself too much. I got to get it to the finish line. But it was me saying, okay, I got this vision from the blackness of space. I'm going to manifest a book down here, and I'm going to make this a thing. I'm going to make it feel real online. I'm going to make the right connections. I'm going to stick to my word with Zoop. I'm going to utilize the pieces that God or the universe or Tao or whatever's putting in front of me through my art rep, through whatever. I'm going to analyze what can help manifest this, and I will play all of those notes to the best of my stupid Texas ability, and that's the best way I can explain this last year and a half.
That's a pretty good explanation, to be honest, Nick. I'm pretty impressed with that. I mean, we've gone past the hour now, so we're nearly at the end of the show. So I would like to just take the opportunity to again say thank you so much for joining us, Nick. It's been really good talking to you. Quite inspiring, in fact. A lot of what you said is really sort of hit home. Being a little publisher myself, and knowing a lot of little publishers who are sort of in your position, and some of them are struggling, some of them are not so much. But it's been really good to hear you speak, and to know that somebody can put themselves into their work the way you've done and make it a success and take responsibility for their own work. And so thank you for that, mate, as well.
Yes, really you're the candy apple of the apple tree, Nick.
That just means I'm gonna have fucking ants on me soon. That's all.
Yeah. This analogy could go anywhere. So, hey guys, one last little question before we go. Obviously, Ax-Wielder Jon is your world at the moment. Are there other little ideas in there that you in the future may want to put out there?
there's a story I can't talk a lot about, but it's the one I wrote first. There's two. One I sent to DC, and it's a big epic. I'll say it's called All-Star Bizarro, and it's the coolest Bizarro story. And it's the coolest story that I've ever written. I've written a lot of stuff, but never like brought it to the world. But that one, if DC gets smart, well, they probably can't afford me now, so I probably won't worry about it. But All-Star Bizarro, as a compendium to All-Star Superman, I got an idea that's killer. And
I'm sold by the title, to be honest.
I plotted it out and everything. And then there's one called Uno, and it's kind of trite and it's not marketable because it's an answer to, and someone can steal this if someone else wants to make no money. But Uno is, if you call a character Uno and his name is Uno, every issue is a new number one, and every issue could be called retcon or reboot or whatever. But what would happen? It's a superhero horror story, and what would happen if you woke up and your dead wife was back? What would happen if everyone's face changed slightly because the art changed? What would happen? And it just imagine a devolving. It's kind of like a RoboCop. I realized what I was writing. Like RoboCop starts having flashes of his family and he's freaking out. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a superhero RoboCop, and it's a superhero horror story, but it's so interior to comic books. Like it's my big complaint on comic books that I'm doing like I'm writing for a subgenre of a subgenre, and it's not gonna have the appeal. But I do like that. I do like that story quite a bit. But it would take a bunch of different artists in a de-evolution of art style to really pull off the horror elements that I don't think I could craft on my own. Then that's one. But the biggest thing I can promote, I know we're getting long, is Kuroshi Comics is the brand I made for Ax-Wielder, and I'm basically letting other creatives come in if they want, and whatever infrastructure I can set up, I'm going to try to share. So there's still rough plans, and then I don't know if I like talking to other publishers too. I would love to get a front-facing Kuroshi Comics thing where we could crowdfund, and then a back end of great distribution channels, and that's my goal. And eventually I'll get to make press announcements about that, but that's the goal. And Ax-Wielder would be the lead title of that. So, but that's a bigger plan. That's like a 5-10 year plan.
It's good to have those long-term goals, though, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah, we'll see. But I want to thank you guys for having me on. I'm sorry we only got 2 sentences out of each of y'all. I apologize. I'm the worst.
No, it's great.
You have a lot
to
say,
happy.
Nick.
Yeah, we were very happy to listen to you, Nick. That's what we get people on for, to do their thing. So thank you again so much. Can't thank you enough. And have yourself an absolutely great evening, won't you, mate?
Thank you, Shane, Ollie, and Sam. I appreciate you guys.
Cheers, Nick.